Good morning. As we go to the Chitas of today, start a new Parsha, Parsha Yisrei. We're holding in the book of Shemais, the book of Exodus, chapter 18, verse number 1. Vayishma Yisrei, Yisrei heard Kayin Midian. Priest of Midian is Chaysim Meshu, father-in-law Moses, Kol Hashar Asalakim. Everything that God did, Moshe to Moshe, Yisrael, and to Israel, Amah his nation, Yitzi Hashem es Yisrael Mitzrayim, because the Lord has taken out the Jews from the land of Egypt. Rashi says, "Vayishma mashama shmua uva." What did he hear? That he came. So Rashi says, "Kriyas Yamsuf." He heard the crossing of the sea, u'mechemes Amalek, and the war with Amalek. Yisrei Sheva Shemes Nikrala. Yisrei had 7 names. He was called Ruel, Yisrei, Chayvav, Hever, Keni, Utiel. He was called Yeser because he added a section later to the Torah. He as before, I will learn what you shall choose. He was called Yisrei to indicate that he converted to fulfill the commandments. A letter was added to his name, Yisrei. He was called Chayvav, which means a lover, because he loved the Torah. He was, as later it says in the book of Judges, the children of Chayvav, Moshe's father-in-law. Others say Ruel was Yisrei's father. If so, what is the meaning of what Torah says, referring to the daughters of Yisrei? They came to their father Ruel, because young children called their grandfather father. So there's an argument if he had the name Ruel or it was his father's. Chayse Moshe, here Yisrei prides himself in relationship to Moshe. I'm a king's father-in-law. In the past, Moshe attributed greatness to his father-in-law. He said Moshe went down to return Yisrei, his father-in-law. So they honored each other. The Moshe Yisrael. Over here we learn that Moshe was equal to all of Israel. Nasi hu akoil, as Rashi will say in a different pasuk. The Nasi, the leader, is everything. Eskola Sharasa, everything that he did with the man and with the well, with the Be'er Shomiyam and with Amalek, etc. Ki Chaytzi Hashem Zugdele Mekulam. The greatest thing was that he took the Avish, the God took the Jews out of Mitzrayim. And Yisrei, the father-in-law Moshe, took Tzipora, his daughter, Ashes Moshe, the wife of Moshe, after he sent her away on the way to Egypt. Actually, when the Holy One Besvi said to go immediately to go return to Egypt, Moshe took his wife and his sons. And Aaron went forth and met him at the mount of God. And Aaron said to him, "Who are these?" And Moshe Rabbeinu said, "This is my wife, who I married in Midian, and these are my 2 sons. And where are you taking them?" He asked. "To Egypt." Aaron reported, we are suffering with the first ones. You come to add, you can bring your wife and children into this gullus. Send them home. Send them to your father. And that's what he did. She took her 2 sons and went back to her father. And he brought her 2 sons. One name was named Gershon, because he said, "I am a stranger in a foreign land." And the second son was called Eliezer, because the God of my father came to my aid. And he rescued me from the hands of Pharaoh. Now she said, when Dasan Aviram informed the Pharaoh what Moshe Rabbeinu did, the Pharaoh wanted to kill him. And Moshe Rabbeinu's neck became like a marble pillar, and he couldn't kill him. And Yisrei came. The father of Moshe came with his sons and his wife, Moshe to Moshe Lamidba, to the desert. Ashuchainasham, where Moshe Rabbeinu was, Hadalakim, to the mountain of God, to Har Sinai. Now, as he says, we know that the desert, without the text saying explicitly, we know where the Jews are. But the text is speaking about the praise of Yisrei, that he lived amidst the great honor of the world. He was a Kohen Midian. But his heart prompted him to go forth to the desert. He dropped everything to go forth and to be part of the Jewish nation, to convert. And they said to Moshe, they meant him a message. Yisra, your father-in-law, I'm coming. And your wife and your two sons are with her. Now she said, Moshe, through a messenger. If you will not come out for my sake, come out for the sake of your wife. Not for the sake of your wife, come out for the sake of your children. So Moshe Rabbeinu went out towards his father-in-law. He prostrated him and he kissed him. And they spoke to each other of peace. And they entered the tent. Now she says, Yisrael was afforded a great honor at that time. Since Moshe went out, Aaron went out, none of Aviyah went out. When they saw them going out, who did not go out? And everyone went out to greet Yisrael. I did not know a prostitute to whom. When it says Ish L'Re'ehu, a man to his friend, who is called a man? This is Moshe. Or who is a Ish, as it says, who is the Ish Moshe? So I know V'yishtachu goes on Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe told his father-in-law all that has happened. That the Abish did to Pharaoh, Mitzrayim, to the Egyptians, because of the Jewish people. It's called Atalah. All the hardships would happen in the way. Hashem, and the Abish always saved them. Now she says, when he saw that his father-in-law was interested in becoming a Yid, so he was makad of him. It's called Atalah. He brought him closer. It's called Atalah. Shalayam, Shalamalik told him all the situation. Whatever you heard is nothing to what even happened. Atalah, Lam, and Aleph is a grammar. Tala'ah comprises the root of the word, both formative and basic, sometimes omitted. So Rashi is explaining why you have to have these two letters in the word. Yachad Yitzay is called Ateva Sharasa, and Jether was happy for all the good. Asheras Hashem, he saw all the good. He was happy. Baruch Hashem on all the good things that God did to the Jewish people. Asher Tzilim Mitzrayim, how he saved them from the hands of Mitzrayim. Rashi said, Yisra rejoice. This is a simple meaning. So he was happy. Baruch Hashem, he was happy in the success. The Agada Medeshav explains that his flesh became prickly because he was upset. That's why it says the word Vayichad. The simple meaning Vayichad is rejoice, but actually Rashi says, the Medrash says he was so happy because he was upset about the destruction of Egypt. To realize Egypt at that time was the superpower of the world, say in power and say in beauty. And it was a beautiful country. And here he was very hurt that they were destroyed. Until now, no slave were able to escape even Egypt because of the border was locked. And these people fled, 600,000 strong, only men, over 1 million people fled away. So he was not so happy. Baruch Hashem, but Yisrael said, thank you, God, because he saved you from the hands of the Egyptians, from the hands of Egypt. He saved this nation mitachas yad Mitzrayim from under the hand of Egypt. Mitzrayim was a strong nation, a superpower of the world. Umiyad Parei, who was a strong king. Mitachas yad Mitzrayim, as Onkelos rendered it, beneath the control of the Egyptian, expression of tyrannization and domination. The verse refers to the hand which they, the Egyptians, laid heavy upon the Israelites in slavery. Ati Yadaiti, verse 11. Now I know. Ki Godel Hashem mikol elakim. Now I know God is a God of all deities in the world. Ki badov asher zodo aleim, because the things that they plotted against the Jews is exactly what God did to them. Now she says, Ata Yadaiti makira isi l'shavar. I recognize God in the past, but now I recognize even more. Mikol aleim. This teaches us that Yisrael was knowledgeable in every type of idolatry in the world. And there was no pagan deity that he did not worship. But now he said, I realize all sheker. There's only God. This explains, according to Aramaic translation, Onkelos renders with things that the Egyptians plotted to judge the Jews. That's the way exactly he judged them. With the water, they planned to destroy them, and they were destroyed with water. Asher Zadu Aleim, Rashi says, which they planned to wickedly. Our rabbis have interpreted Zadu as an expression related to Jacob's cook Vayazid, cooked, and thus it refers to that every pot in which they cooked, they themselves were cooked. That's expression. It's expression of the Gemara. In the pot that they cooked, you cooked to do hurt somebody else. The same pot cooked you, so to say. That's an expression. So that's called the midah keneged midah. He realized when the Eibishter punishes, how God punishes midah keneged midah. Whatever these Mitzrayim did bad to the Jews is exactly what happened to them. So Mika Yisrael, the father-in-law, Moshe took Eilu, Zvachim, Lelikim, he brought up sacrifice to God. And Aaron and all the elders of the Jewish people came lechem to eat bread. With the father-in-law of Moshe Lefnei Elikim before God. The Rashi says Oila Kemashmoy, and Oila is a burnt offering that we're going to learn in Vayikra. Means to go up, means it was totally burnt. It was Zvachim and a peace offering because it's called a Zvachim because people can eat it. Vayavi Aaron u'Moshe. Vayavi Aaron. And where did Moshe? Why did Moshe not mention in this meal? The simple answer is he was standing and serving them. According to the Midrashim, actually, it was Yom Kippur. It was when Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the second luchas. It was Yom Kippur, so he was fasting. From here we learn that if one derives pleasure from the feast on which Torah scholars are seated, it's as if he derived pleasure from the splendor of the Shekhinah. So he was sitting he was Lefnei Elikim, is after this they were sitting in front of God. And that completes the Chumash for today. We go on to Tanya of the day, which is chapter 23 of Tanya. So in the previous chapter, the Rebbe explained that from God's perspective, nothing is ever separate from Him, from the divine word. Everything, the word is connected to God, and God is the word, and God is the world. And therefore, God is the world, and everything in the world is God. So the word which creates everything is unlike the word spoken by a human being. The latter becomes separate from the speaker, while the former remains always within its source, God. It's only from the subject of viewpoint of the created beings that they're considered separate. So the way we look at the world, that we're separate, independent entities. And that's gaiva, that's gaseous, it's gases. That's our ego. And that's why we need to break our ego, basically. They are able to regard themselves as such because they receive divine life force, which animates them by the way of many tzimtzumim and through a concealment of divine continents, etc. The concealment of the inner, ultimate aspect of God's will. And that's why, since we come through Dibur, and that's through tzimtzum, and therefore to us, we feel independent. The logical correlation to this idea is that anything in which the divine will stands revealed is completely nullified before God. And that's the avodah. As I say in the Mishnah, I say that we should reveal God's will within our will. That's the ultimate, because when we can reveal God's will within our will, we have nullified our will. Nullify your will to the will of God. And that's the ultimate. That's when you reveal godliness within yourself. This chapter, the Alter Rebbe applies this idea to the word Torah mitzvahs, in which God's will is manifested. That's the beauty. You'll understand the beauty of Torah and mitzvahs, because a mitzvah and Torah are totally bottled to the Eibishter. They have no identity but God's will. We put on tefillin because that's what God wants us to do. We learn Torah because that's the Eibishter wants. You should learn Torah. That's why you should learn Torah, because that's the Eibishter's will. Yisa b'yayim v'alayla. It's a pasuk in the Torah. You shall learn Torah by day and night. He demonstrates this how we can unite with God's will and wisdom through connecting to the Torah and by doing a mitzvah. And if you do it l'shma, then you bottle to the Eibishter. So that's the easiest way, the way a person become nullified to God's will. And thereby with God himself, through study of Torah and the observance of mitzvahs. And that's what the Alter Rebbe is going to explain in these chapters. Yim Kol Niskalel, chapter 23. The light of all that was said above, Yivayit Hativ will understand very well, but Tesis beer with more fully and clearly elucidated. We'll understand very clear this. If you understand what I explained in the last 3 chapters, you'll understand very clear what is written in Masham B'Zoyar, what's written in the Zoyar, that the Torah and God are entirely one. Tikkun and Perush, and in the commentary of the Kunei Zoyar, they explain that Amach Bekudin and Amach Ivon the Malk, a Yid has to look at 248 commandments like they're the 248 limbs of the king. Just as everyone has an organ in the body, human body, is a repository for the particular faculty of the soul that is vested in the organ. The eye is a receptacle for the faculty of sight. And the ear is a faculty of hearing, so there's a vessel. Baruch Hashem, the Eibishter made a vessel. He has a neshama. He puts a neshama within me, and now the neshama needs to have vessels. So the neshama that can see, sees through the eye. The neshama that can hear, hears through the ear. The neshama that can speak, speaks through the mouth, and so on. So they are vessels. Baruch Hashem, as long as we're healthy, the vessels and the light and the neshama, they work together. So too the Zohar says, these are the vessels of the Eir Hashem. The body, the Eibishter's Eir comes into an organ, so to say. Just like in a neshama comes into an organ, the Eibishter comes into an organ. And that organ is the mitzvah. Is the light, is the organ, is the right vessel, the exact vessel that the Eibishter created for this light. So too, every commandment is a channel and respiratory for the divine will that is vested and expressed in a particular commandment. The commandments in general represents God's will. Each individual mitzvah is an expression of a particular aspect of this will. It should be noted, however, according to this analogy, the mitzvahs are no more than God's organs. An organ of the body is not one with the soul. Sure, when the particular soul power is vested in the corresponding organ, they function together as one. But there remain 2 separate entities that have him joined together. The same token, the mitzvahs are not actually one with God. They are merely as we're joined with him. Yet the Torah, whose purpose is to explain the mitzvah, that's why the Zohar says, it doesn't say the mitzvahs and God is one. It says, the Torah and the Eibishter. The mitzvah is in a gashmi. Every mitzvah is a physical thing. That's why it's the organ. So within this physical thing, within this tefillin, within this neiros of Shabbos, within this kosher animal, all comes in. Comes the vessel to which the Eir Hashem comes in. But when it comes to the Torah, it's a whole different reality. In Torah, the Torah is one with God. As quoted earlier in the Zohar. What does it mean? The greater unity is found in the Torah and the acts of Torah study that surpass even the unity of mitzvahs and their fulfillment. So that's the greatness of Torah. Talmud Torah keneged kulam. That's why it says the learning of Torah goes above and beyond everything. Because the mitzvahs constitute the innermost will and his true desire. So that's why Chassidus explains the difference between mitzvahs and Torah. Mitzvahs is the Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the will of God. Torah is Chachmas Shel HaKadosh, the wisdom of God. So mitzvahs is the innermost will and his true desire. The Eibishter has a desire that we should put on tefillin. And we should do every mitzvah. Which ultimately clothes itself in all the upper and lower worlds and by give them life. So all the worlds are a product of God's will. And he desired that they exist. And this desire that is what brought about them in the beginning. However, this desire is but external manifestation. His underlying internal will So everything in the world is there for the mitzvah. So really, the whole world that the Eibishter created is chitzonius. The mitzvah is the pneumius. That means that in essence, you take the whole world, the Eibush, not only this world, all the upper worlds and low worlds were all created for the inner will. It's like a person creates a home. His home is just the thing that he creates for his inner will to desire to have a home, which is desires. Inner desire is not the physical home. His desire is to be within the home, which is more of a spiritual concept. So the chetzonis is the house, and the inner reason of why a person lives in a house is the real reason why he has the house. So to the Eibishter created the whole worlds, all the worlds, upper worlds, lower worlds, all were created for his pneumius haratzon, for his inner will. And what's the inner will? Is the mitzvah. The inner will is the mitzvah. That's the inner will. And that's why the Eibishter wants. I mean, that's why it says if the Yidden would stop chas v'shalom doing mitzvahs, there's no reason for the world. The world does not need to exist. Because the desire that mitzvah be performed. And it's possible only when there's someone to perform them. And when there are objects to perform, the Eibishter need to create the world. So he need to create the world so that his inner will to be accomplished. And what's his true inner will is the mitzvah. To this end, God created all worlds. This can be illustrated analogy of a man who travels aboard on business. Naturally, he travels because he wishes to do so. But his internal, ultimate desire in the journey, in his underlying motive, lies in the profit that he reaches. Okay, I'll give a better example that I gave. So that's the real reason he gives. This is not the Alter. This is the interpretation of the Tanya here, Rabbi Weinberg. So Rabbi Weinberg gives a better analogy. So the person that travels on business, he's not traveling because he wants to travel. It's not a vacation. He's traveling because he wants to make business, and that's the inner reason why he's traveling. When we probe still deeper, you desire. Then you go deeper, and you say, "What is the desire to profit? Why does he want to profit? Why does he want to profit?" And the answer is Itaka, right? He doesn't want to profit for the profit itself. He wants to profit because the profit gives him the capability to have an inner deeper desire, which is to have a house. And why does he want a house? With a deeper desire to have a family. And why does he want a family? So everything becomes nimis and retainis, and as we learn Chassidus, everything becomes relative. So the pnimi becomes a chitzon to the thing that's higher than it. Desire of the things he will be able to buy, which proceeds from his business. Here lies the true objective of his life, is his desire, which he creates a desire for profit, which leads in turn to desire to travel. So to the case of the worlds of mitzvahs, God's external will, his desire that the world exists, is motivated by his desire of a true objective as his pleasure, which is a mitzvah. Thus, the mitzvah represents the innermost will. And that's why mitzvahs are called will. For it's this, for their sake that the God gives life to the whole world. Mitzvahs, as we know, the very life and sustenance of all the world is dependent upon the performance of mitzvahs. That from the human being does mitzvahs, as it's known. That the performance of mitzvahs draws God's life and sustenance into the worlds. So it comes out, so it follows that the performance and the fulfillment of mitzvahs is the innermost garment, into the innermost aspect of God's will. That through this action, through this action of this mitzvah, that the light and life of the worlds issues forth from the divine will. The slabish ba'ilim is to come clothed in them, and that's why the 248 commandments are the 248 organs of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Since God desired the world only as a vehicle for the performance of mitzvahs, I explained above, and it's only for this reason that he animates all the worlds, and that completes the Tanya of today. That completes the Tanya of the day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Today is the 18th day of the month, which is chapter 88 and 89. If you do those two chapters, you would do the chitas of the day. And I wish you all a wonderful day. You can come together, Mitzvah, at 10 a.m., either in person at the JEI, that's a school right next to the Chabad, or on Zoom, or on Torah Direct. And I wish you all a wonderful and beautiful week. See you, Mitchum, tomorrow, 8 a.m. We'll continue the chitas of the day.